Hey everyone, and welcome to my 2025 reading stats. We're now in 2026, so it's time to look back at the previous year's reading trends, see what I need to improve upon, see what I'm really happy with. So let's load up Notion and get right into the statistics. I've moved over just a little bit so we can see all of the stats in full here. So if we start with the actual breakdown of the numbers of books I read last year and exactly what they were, as we can see, it was 225 books last year, which is frankly a lot of books. And if I remember rightly, that's probably the most I've read in a very, very long time. Usually it's around the 180 mark, so I am shocked it's at 225 last year. But at the same time, when you actually break it down into whether they were novels or comics, as we can see, it was 6 mangas and then 124 comics, which is where the numbers really boosted, because I apparently went all in on comics last year, which I knew because I usually do. Comic books are always the prevailing thing I read out of absolutely everything, because I do read a lot of comics. I'm usually doing it for research for the Comic Book Sanctum, whether that be the blog or the YouTube channel now or whatever else, and also just for fun. So I know I read a lot of comics, but it was 68.1% of what I read last year, which is frankly a ridiculous number. That is nearly 2/3 of what I read, which, I mean, is not exactly shocking, but at the same time is slightly shocking because that is a lot of comics. I did not realise it was that many. Then if we look at the novel breakdowns, we can see that I read 21 ebooks. I also read 20 paperbacks, 13 hardbacks and 12 audiobooks, which is around sort of what I was expecting, to be perfectly honest with you, because I was trying to read 60 books in the year of 2025 and I managed to read, if I do the quick maths, 21, 41, 54, 65. So I read 65 books in total, which is not bad, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I said, the goal was 60, so to be over that is absolutely fantastic. And I'm actually quite happy with the format breakdown because it's all around the same kind of numbers. So I wasn't favouring, say, ebooks over like paperbacks or anything else. And it means I am reading off my physical shelves and also my Kindle shelves and also my audiobook shelves. So I'm pretty happy with that breakdown of format. Then if we look at the age range breakdown, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because 125 adult novels and then also 19 middle grade is exactly where I thought it would be. That is the usual amount that I usually read each year, but 81 adult novels is where it is. Surprised me because I genuinely did not think I read that many, but that's probably though because I'm reading a little bit more horror recently, because that does generally skew a little bit older into the adult age range. So that may be where that's come from, but at the same time I am a little bit surprised it was 81. If anything, I thought it would be around the 50 range, but apparently it was 81, so that was a large chunk of what I read last year. And I must say, that's quite interesting because I genuinely did not think I was skewing more towards adult books, but apparently I am, so that is a very interesting thing to think about going forward. Then if we look at the genre breakdown, we have 3 Afrofuturism books, 18 contemporary. Since when did I read that many contemporary? I'll have a click on that in a minute and see what exactly that was. 6 cozy books? What was cozy? I'm going to have to click on that as well. 2 dystopian, 51 fantasy, 23 horror, 8 retellings, 2 romances. I'm again going to have to click on that. 58 sci-fis, 137 superheroes, 2 supernatural and 15 thrillers. So this is a mixture of genres, by the way. I'm not just listing down one genre per book. There is a little bit of like crossover because sometimes it will be a superhero sci-fi or whatever else. So that the numbers aren't quite up to the 225. It's more than that, but that is interesting. What did I read that was contemporary? Just out of interest. Kickflip, yeah, that makes sense. Role Model, Spy X Family, The Old Guard is a contemporary fantasy technically. All That It Ever Meant, yeah, again, that is contemporary. Wish You Were Her is contemporary and a romance. Starter Villain, okay, yeah, Starter Villain was contemporary. It wasn't really a sci-fi or anything else. Radio Silence, yeah, contemporary. The Trouble with Nina, which is another Elle McNichol. Yeah, okay, that was contemporary. Right, okay, so what I did was I noted down anything that was not set in a fantasy world as a contemporary. Okay, that makes sense, because I was looking at that going, I swear the only contemporaries I read were Elle McNichol this year, but apparently I also read a couple of others as well that were actually like contemporary books as well, like Heartstopper and Lavender Clouds, but some of them were also superhero fantasy or like superhero contemporary, sorry, or fantasy contemporary. So that makes a little bit sense. What did I read that I technically counted as cozy? Heartstopper, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Alligator Loki, why did I write down Alligator Loki and Jeff the Land Shark as cozy? Well, it's cozy for me because they're just fun little reads that take me 5 minutes and are always a pick-me-up. So I guess they count as cozy for me. And then Ascendance of the Bookworm, yeah, it's definitely a cozy read. So, okay, yeah, I can understand that. Then, what was the two romances? That must be Elle McNichol and Heartstopper. Okay, yeah, Elle McNichol and Heartstopper. What's the thrillers? Because I don't remember reading thrillers. Eat the Rich, yes, okay. Small Matter of Impending Catastrophe, yeah, that's technically a thriller. The bad ones, yeah, Daredevil, yeah, I'll count that as thriller as well, to be honest. And also the Captain America stuff. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because that's all superhero stuff, but also thrillery, so that's why I noted it down. So, yeah, that is making sense. I will say I read more sci-fi than I read fantasy this year. That I was not expecting. Just looking at the numbers there, I was not expecting to have read more sci-fi than I did fantasy. But at the same time, like I said, I was noting down the genre within superhero genre as well. And a lot of them are sci-fi because I was reading things like Fantastic Four and Ironheart, which are very sort of sci-fi based. Because they're dealing with like technology and things like this and space sometimes if it's the Fantastic Four. So yeah, that does make sense. So overall, I'm reading a fair amount of like genre crossover. Again, it is overwhelmingly superhero because I mean, I am a superhero girl, so clearly that was going to be okay. That was clearly going to be what happened, because clearly I am a superhero fan. I love superheroes. We know this about me. I'm a massive superhero fan, so 137 superhero comics is around about right, and everything else is kind of in proportion for what I was expecting. So, well, sort of expecting with a few surprises. So I'm quite happy with this genre breakdown, I won't lie, because it does feel a little like I'm reading a lot of genres. Even if I am sticking to like sci-fi, fantasy and superhero, I'm also adding in other genres in there as well, like contemporary, cozy, Afrofuturism, a little bit of romance, retellings, all of that kind of thing. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this genre breakdown. It was surprising, I won't lie, but I am pretty happy with it. Then if we actually look at the star breakdown, as we can see, I read 167 4-star books this year, which is 74.2%, nearly 3/4 of what I read, which is absolutely fantastic. It means I'm enjoying the vast majority of what I read, and a lot of it is 4 stars, so I am really enjoying myself, which is fantastic. I then also read 23 5 stars, which is 10.2% of what I read. Again, that is absolutely fantastic. I love that as a number. It means I was reading a lot of 5-star reads this year, and actually I will leave a link up above to my video where I go through my favourites of the year, so you can check that out if you are interested. And then everything else is 3 stars and lower, which again is absolutely fine. Not everything is going to work perfectly for everybody, and sometimes you will find something that you didn't enjoy as much, but at the same time I am still reading the vast majority 4 stars and above reads, which is fantastic for me. It means I'm really enjoying what I'm reading, and that is great. Then if we look at the author gender, as we can see, I read 49 female authors, 160 male authors, 9 non-binary authors, and 7 books that were written by more than one author. So that's still not the best in the world. I did want to really sort of higher up how many women I was reading and non-binary authors, so it's not the greatest in the world, I won't lie, but I'm pretty sure that's still getting higher than usual. I mean, that's definitely more non-binary authors than I was reading before, so I'm definitely doing better on that one, but I definitely still need to work on reading more female authors, definitely. I mean, admittedly, some of this is skewed because a lot of comics are written by men, and I think most of the books I was reading were by women, so it kind of skews that way just because of the genre that I was reading and the format I was reading, but that still is no excuse. There is a lot of female comic book authors out there as well that I could be reading, so it's not the greatest in the world. It is definitely something I'm going to have to keep an eye on in the future and try and sort of like even that out a little bit more. But at the very least, I'm happy with the amount of non-binary authors I was reading, because that is definitely higher than it was before. So at the very least, I did better there, but I definitely need to do better at reading more women. Then if we have a look at the LGBTQI plus author compared to straight author, and as we can see, this is a major disparity that I am not happy with, because I only read 37 LGBTQI plus authors this year, which is nowhere near what I wanted it to be. I wanted that to be at least like 50 this year, and that just did not happen. So apparently I really need to be focusing on this and working through finding more LGBTQI plus authors, because I know several of these were repeated when I was reading people like Shauna Maguire, Elle McNichol, people like this, where I was reading multiple books by them, which is fine because I love supporting them and their work. I love their work so much, but I really need to be supporting more LGBTQI plus authors, because this is a major disparity and I am not happy with that. The exact same thing can be said for author of colour, because I genuinely thought I read more than 38 this year, but apparently I didn't. So I definitely need to be working more on this, because my goal is always to reach more 50-50 between straight white authors and able-bodied authors compared to disabled LGBTQI plus authors of colour. So I definitely need to be working more on that, because the disparity is massive at the moment. So I really need to be working more towards that 50-50 mark. And it's even worse for disabled authors, because I only read 10 this year, which is definitely not okay, and I know for a fact that that is 90% Shauna Maguire and Elle McNichol, which is fine because I love their work, I love supporting their work, but I definitely need to be working more on reading more disabled authors, because this is a ridiculously small number and it definitely needs to be worked on in the future. And then finally, if we also look at the country of origin for the authors that I was reading, as you can see, 169 of those were American, then 24 were from the UK, and then 12 were from Ireland, and that was 90% Derek Landy. And then I read 8 from Japan, which will be the manga and a few other bits I read. And then I also read from authors from Canada, Scotland, Australia, Korea, New Zealand, Nigeria, the Philippines and Zimbabwe. So that is more than what I was doing last year in 2024. I was mainly reading from the UK, America and Ireland. So I have expanded a little bit further in that, but I definitely want to be reading from more authors from more countries around the world, because I'm just not doing that right now and I really want to. So this is a good step in the right direction, but I definitely want a larger slice of this donut to be more authors from around the world and not just the UK, Ireland and America. And that is all of my stats. So overall, I'm reasonably happy with it, but at the same time, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement in places, like with diversifying my authors. I'm definitely doing better on reading around the world, and I definitely want to be continuing that going forward, because that is something that's really going to diversify my reading, which I really want to be doing. And also, I just want to be reading more books from authors that aren't just from the same 3 countries. So definitely want to be carrying on doing that. I definitely want to be more intentional with who I am reading as well, and trying to be reading more disabled authors, more LGBTQI plus authors and more authors of colour. So I definitely need to be working on that more this year and going forward. In terms of genre and age range, I am absolutely fine with that. I am very happy with the fact that I'm still reading from middle grade all the way up to adult, even though I'm slightly surprised I'm reading more adult than I was expecting, but I'm not exactly complaining about that. It just means that my tastes are changing, and that is absolutely fine. I'm also happy with the genre breakdown. So overall, I'm kind of happy with a few bits, surprised about some others, and definitely need to improve in some other places as well. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this, because I need to be going and looking up more authors from different countries and trying to diversify my read. So I'm going to leave this here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me if you've got any stats that surprised you this year. I would love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a graph emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But till next time everyone, bye!